Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar, which really is just a chat amongst some friends. You may well have heard in the last couple of weeks that our very own IGEL technology evangelist, Fred Brattstig, has been made a MVP. And I thought, what better way to celebrate his recent award than bring together Fred, who is one of the most recent MVPs, and also one of the most long-standing MVPs, Benny Tritsch. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hi.
Good to be here, Simon.
Well, thank you both for joining this morning. Let's kick off by having a quick introduction. Benny, let's start with you. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Benny Tritsch, and I'm an MVP since 17 years now. Yes, since 2004. I'm the oldest MVP in the RDS group by now, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And I'm a, EUC expert since many, many years. I've worked with Simon in the past. We had a good time at Absence at the time. And so I work for either consulting companies or for software vendors in the EUC industry. And that's what I'm doing since 20 plus years.
Excellent. Thank you, Benny. Fred, over to you.
And I'm Fredrik Brattstig. You can call me Fred because there seems to be issues of spelling Fredrik actually in the correct way. So that's why I decided to go for Fred. I am a tech evangelist at IGEL since 6 years. I've been in the EUC space for the last 23 years, I guess. So I'm one of the youngest MVPs, as I got my title award just a few days ago.
And let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Congrats, Fred. Welcome to the club.
Thank you. Thank you. It's amazing, actually. It's cool to be recognized and having the possibility to actually influence, because that's one of the biggest reasons from my side, what I like about it. So yeah, that's me. Very good.
So has it been a long journey, Fred? Has it been something that you've been after for a while?
I cannot really say that I've been after it for a while. Actually, I always have been looking up to MVPs in the past, definitely. I have, during my whole career, known about MVPs and known about what kind of service they do to their community. And I've been trying to live the same kind of service to the IGEL community, of course, since we started that one, and also to provide information to people. That's one of the reasons why I started my blog 1.5 years ago, where I'm also quite young in terms of blogging. I think the reason for me to actually becoming MVP is, of course, due to my history, but a lot of the things is the community contribution in sharing and talking to understand me correctly, talking to the right people. So it's definitely an important piece of why I'm where I am today, because I'm not afraid of talking to people.
Yeah, and that's a very important thing that you say, Fred, because many people misunderstand the MVP program as it's those people who know the technology best that are made MVPs. But this is not true. There are so many brilliant people out there. And I think the difference between these people that may be even smarter and know more about those technologies than I do, I know that for sure that these people are out there. But the MVPs are the ones that speak about it in public, that go beyond their standard role within their organizations, their employer, and if they're self-employed, they go beyond the projects that they're doing. And in my case, it was the book writing. And I wrote a book about Terminal Server published by Microsoft Press at the time. And my biggest competitor at the time was Brian Madden, because he also released his book at the time. So the two of us, we were competing for the audience out there, educating people. And like I said, this is what we wrote the books in our spare time. So it was not our job to write books. We just thought it's a good idea to do it. And so we both published a book pretty much at the same time. And he was more successful in the US market, while I was more successful in the European market. Amazon bundled our books at the time because they thought, whoa, because we were the market leaders. So by far, we sold more books than anybody else at this time. And later we got to know each other and we got close friends. But Microsoft, they saw that we were educating the masses through our books, which is not the way you do it today. Today, it's the blogs. And so they decided that they make us both MVP at the same time. So we joined the MVP program at the same time in 2004. I'm the last man standing because all those that joined at the time, they have different roles. So they fell out of the MVP program at a certain time, like Brian did. And Sean Bass was one of those who was an MVP. And somebody else you know very well, Doug Brown.
Mr. Brown.
I got to know Doug during the when he was an MVP.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things that I want to highlight. You get to know those people in our industry that are educating other people out there, sharing their knowledge. And this is exactly why they made you an MVP, because you know the stuff and you're talking about it and you go beyond what you are supposed to do as an evangelist or as a member of the team in IGEL.
Yeah. Now they give that MVP award out based on different technologies, correct? So
yes.
The one you receive, Fred, is enterprise mobility. Is that right?
Yeah, the RDS program or the RDS group now belongs to the enterprise mobility. So they merged a couple of technologies. In the past, it was up to 100 different categories. That was too much. So they kind of consolidated that. And so now we're members of the enterprise mobility group. Yes.
Yeah.
And how many people are in that enterprise mobility MVP program?
Oh,
If you look it up, it's like in like 100 or so.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Somewhere around that. But then you have the different subsections, so to speak, where me and Benny is for the RDS and the Windows Virtual Desktop side. But enterprise mobility is a combination of, could it be about 10 different areas?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Consolidated some of those, like the endpoint management and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Fred, tell us a little bit about some of the work you've been doing over the last year, 18 months in terms of what you've been delivering on your blog and what you've been speaking to the community about.
Yeah, I mean, this is also the reason for why I received the award of MVP, actually, because I started up the blog in terms of accelerated graphics on IGEL OS. So a personal blog about the work I'd done at IGEL, more or less. And it started to spread the blog, actually, and become somewhat successful. And then during the time I actually got the title of Tech Evangelist at IGEL last summer. When I changed my role, I was also immediately involved in the Windows Virtual Desktop development of the Linux client for Windows Virtual Desktop that actually come from a SDK delivered by Microsoft. So I've been to Redmond a few times, been sitting together with the developers from IGEL and from Microsoft, and seeing and influencing where the IGEL Windows Virtual Desktop client would go, and are still ongoing development, so to speak. That was when I started to be part of this. I also saw that there were a lot of misunderstanding or actually lack of understanding or knowledge about the Linux side of endpoints for Windows Virtual Desktop. And I took the opportunity to actually fill that gap and started to blog about the releases that we did, how it could match into the Windows Virtual Desktop side, just to spread the information about that there is actually one section from Microsoft that is of big importance to customers, but the amount of knowledge out there is limited. It's also, I mean, the SDK is delivered by Microsoft, but it's not a ready-to-run client. So what IGEL is doing is implementing the client based on the SDK, which also means that Microsoft do not really, in a Microsoft native product, talk about the product in the community and in the product pages and whatever. So I think it's a very important thing to actually spread the word about the Windows Virtual Desktop client on Linux.
Yeah, agreed. And Benny, you started off with the Terminal Services book. Terminal Services has obviously been through a few different names.
Oh, yes.
And we now sort of look at it as VDI or Desktop as a Service. Have you always focused on one particular area, or has that changed for you over the years?
That's the interesting thing. I'm doing pretty much the same thing since 20 years or more, because it is about graphics remoting. And when I started in research in the 90s, and at the time, nobody thought that this will ever be a hot topic. That was something that you did as a researcher and publishing the results. And people thought, yeah, this is something very academic, because we also started integrating video streams and all of that, and adding video cameras and microphones and everything, and trying to compress the data and send it through a wire to a remote site, and then also trying to remote the entire desktop. It already existed in the Unix world, and they were always looking at us like, okay, this already is there, so what's a big deal about it? Well, I don't know. It's a technology that we can use, but you cannot use it in such a way as we do today. And so it was a long way to get there. So actually, I have a PhD in graphics remoting, which is interesting, because from 96. And so it is almost 25 years ago that I was really deep into this kind of, well, topic or subject, but from a research point of view. And then more and more, it turned out to be something that people really wanted to use out in the wild. But it took until today that we are basically in the center of the universe with this technology. So this is how long it can take. And sometimes it takes a pandemic so that even those people who didn't take it seriously want to use this technology. So yes, I went through all the different stages of remoting, and the MVP program was extremely important for me, because it allowed me to get together with those people who are also interested in the same subject. It's like a special interest group, but it's a global group. And you also only have like 20 or 25 people who really go deep. And Microsoft was able to bring those people together. And we were in a lucky situation, because none of us was competing with the other, because we all had good jobs. And we continued sharing our knowledge with the world out there, with the different methods that we had. So Brian was the first one who introduced, who established his blog, and he educated us in using our own name as a brand. So then it's easier to get established in the market and have a better career, because it was really good for my career being an MVP and knowing these people. And to Fred's point, to meet with the product managers, with the developers, to speak to those people who really built the products that we're using day in, day out, and that we are so passionate about. And that was interesting for me, because I'm a former developer. During my PhD thesis, I wrote, I think, more than 100,000 lines of code in C and C++. And but then you get to know those developers that are working on the RDP protocol and integrating GPUs and all of that. And that was extremely exciting. And then it was our job as the group of MVPs to educate our customers and peers so that they were able to use the technology, and to tell them, no, Microsoft doesn't want to conquer the world with this technology. There are just regular people and they have their ambitions, absolutely. And it's good to know them and then educate customers and partners about what they're doing, and well, taking away the fear from them. And I think that IGEL did a wonderful, wonderful job going to the WVD team, having this conversation like Fred said earlier. And because typically companies are afraid of going to Microsoft and working together with them, because they're scared of Microsoft taking away their ideas and everything. Now, if Microsoft wants to take away something, they acquire you, because I was part of FS Logics and I know what I'm talking about. So if they really want something, yeah, either they make it or they buy it. They always prefer to buy it. And they always prefer to find those partners that are willing to fill a gap. And this is exactly what IGEL was able to do, because Microsoft doesn't know about Linux.
Yeah.
Now they are hiring people who know. But IGEL, this is your bread and butter business. You know Linux. You live and breathe Linux. And this was exactly what Microsoft wanted to have to fill that gap. And so they were extremely happy. And this is what I learned through the MVP program. They always referred to IGEL as the example that we should look at and follow the same route if we talk to other potential partners, so that they can do the same. Fred, what was your impression when you met with the Microsoft guys?
So I would say it has been a very easy communication, which honestly I wouldn't really expect from the beginning, because it's the big frightening mega company that you are getting into and starting to develop contacts and whatever. So it feels like it should take quite a long time to actually get into the company, but it's very easy, and they're very friendly people and very helpful. Mm-hmm. I see the work that is done between IGEL and Microsoft in terms of the development teams and the SDK developers, and also the program managers at Microsoft. There is a very easy and short path to actually get into contact with those people and have a good discussion.
Yeah, as soon as you know the right people, it's easy.
Yeah. And I think that is also one of the things that I see will be interesting to see where it leads now when I approach Microsoft as an IGEL employee, being part of the Windows Virtual Desktop side from our side, but now also adding the second role of the MVP side, so the community side in terms of delivering information and talking about where to go next.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting.
And that's the idea, because as an MVP, I was able to go and meet with the RDS product team at least once every year. Mm. And since I'm an MVP since 17 years, and I've traveled over there a couple of times, I looked it up, and I think I was over there on campus, met with the terminal server or RDS or WVD team for about 25 times over the last years. And every time it was like a couple of days, like a week or so. Just do the math. It's a long time that you're spending with those people who are building everything, and build a trust relationship with those people, and they start sharing the information because they also want to get the feedback. To be honest, we had interesting conversations with the Microsoft product team, the RDS team, because they don't know what it looks like at customers. They are developers. Yeah. And so they're asking, hey, how do your customers, which are also our customers, how do they use the product that I'm building?
Yeah.
And then you start walking them through how customers are using it, and they look at you, really? This is how they use it? We have never had that. It was never our intention to build it that you can use it that way. Yeah, but this is how they use it. Sometimes they ask us about refresh cycles and do customers implement the back end and the front end at the same time? I mean, this is something that that customers do not update the management backend at the same time when they update the clients.
Yeah.
But for those people in Microsoft, like in an ivory tower, they were like, hey, why don't they update it at the same time? Yes, because there are 100,000 clients out there and there are 3 data centers and they cannot update it at the same time. And they're like, oh. This is why. Yeah. Staged approaches and all of that. We walk them through DTAP, like the staging that customers do in their large data centers. And only since the Azure folks joined, because they're also running data centers, suddenly there's a deeper understanding of we were trying to tell them over years. So our work has got a lot simpler now that the Azure folks are asking them to do the same thing that we're asking them to do. It's a tough thing for the engineering team in Microsoft. And the other thing why they are so friendly to you guys is just look at it from that perspective. Their engineering team, the developers, the group of developers, is most likely smaller for the RDS team compared to the development team that you have. So basically, your development team outnumbers the RDS development team. Why would they try to do it themselves?
Certainly.
You spoke, Benny, about sometimes it takes a pandemic to change people. I mean, what are you guys seeing? I mean, enterprise mobility, all of a sudden, I mean, it's always been an area of speciality for us in the EUC space. But what have you seen most recently? I mean, are you seeing an increase in people deploying VDI and desktop as a service? Do you think that is genuinely helping people rapidly deploy desktop applications to new use cases that you've never seen before?
Yes, absolutely. From what I see, because I'm a part-time contractor and an evangelist for ControlUp and monitoring, so which is integrated now into the IGEL OS, which is nice. So it's now part of the how do you call it? The IGEL OS, the firmware. You call it the firmware.
Yeah.
So now it's part of that.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing the uptake of the technology, and I saw customers that had only 1,000 people working from home, and suddenly they ordered licenses for 10,000. That happened basically from 1 month to the next. And so they are massively investing into their backend infrastructure or into WVD because it helps them to ramp up faster. And this is something that always requires some external push. And this time it was a pandemic. Sometimes it is like a new regulation. Sometimes it is, if everything stays the same from the outside world, if there's no push, why would you change something? The human nature is we just do what we do and we don't want any change as long as possible. But if nature puts a lot of pressure on us, humans are very good at adapting, but they don't do it without any pressure. This is what I learned over these 20 plus years that I'm in the EUC business. Why would you change something if there is no need? It costs money, it costs effort, and you have to convince those users that don't want it. They say, I've always worked like this and I don't want to change. But now they have to work from home, and suddenly there is a way they can do it. And suddenly they start well, enjoying it. Because if you look at EUC, if you look at remote desktops 20 years ago, 10 years ago, performance was not at the same level. Look at your products that you have. Look at your thin clients, how they progressed over time. Just compare today's IGEL thin client to one that you had 10 years ago. This is day and night. And some of those users have been exposed to this technology 10 years ago and they hated it. But now they work from home and suddenly they figured, wow, this works nicely. Maybe I should just keep it. And this is the kind of the mindset that changes when you put pressure on people from the outside. So I would not say the pandemic was a good thing, not at all, absolutely not. But it is one of those things where you put pressure on people and they adapt, which is good for our industry because things were progressing in the same direction, the right direction anyway, but through this external push, it went faster.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Fred? What have you seen?
So I would say the remoting adoption has been so much more rapid the last half year, of course, which makes sense. And I think also one of the things that is very important is all of those, as you've been talking to about all the time, Benny, is the ones that were early adopters of Citrix or RDS or VMware Horizon or whatever it might be, that maybe were too early in the adoption, that weren't the
it's always in the hype cycle.
Yeah, that weren't the perfect fit either, and were not really happy with the results of their implementation 10 years ago.
Yes.
But everything changed so much now. So now you can do the multimedia experience, a very high definition multimedia experience over remoting, which means that the ones that actually got burned quite a few years ago still had the knowledge and understanding about remoting. And now when this pandemic hit, it made it easier for them to adopt, extend, renew, and make their environment much better, no matter which kind of type of remoting. I'm not saying just cloud adoption is accelerating due to the pandemic, but also remoting on your on-prem environments.
Yeah,
which I
absolutely.
think is an even bigger step, actually. The mass of people is much bigger. And I also think it's a very big difference, or not only the way of working for the users. I think it's also a way of working for the companies, for the corporations, that they, from wanting to have their employees in the office, now has a totally different view and a totally different trust of people, allowing them to stay at home or not ever being in the office, more or less, which will definitely change the world and also require the remoting capabilities to be even bigger future-wise. This is also one of the things that I'm thinking about the pandemic. I mean, remoting, everybody didn't actually do this by adding remoting to remoting possibilities for their users. Some maybe extended their VPN possibilities or whatever it might be. But now when everything is starting to calm and being structured again, now it's time for companies actually to start thinking, is the site-to-site VPN thing a good thing? Or should we go remoting and keep the data where the data belongs and so on? I think the technical evolution of remoting in terms of the pandemic has just started.
Yeah, for me, the pandemic was just a trigger.
Yeah,
it's not the pandemic itself that is the driving.
No, of course.
The driving force. It was the trigger.
Yeah.
And I had conversations with customers, with the head of IT in customers, and they said, you know, this technology, the remoting technology, until now has been the ugly stepchild in our data center or in our IT operations. And suddenly
Buzzword.
even the decision makers started looking at it like, whoa, you really saved our butt, because without you, we wouldn't be able to just continue the work. So they were able to transition into a very new way to work within a month or 2 or 3. And they said this was amazing, because now suddenly the higher ups were looking at us like we were able to save them, to help them to keep the business up and running. And those companies that did not have these IT departments that were already prepared, I wouldn't say they were prepared for such a big wave, but they already knew about the technology. And so they were able to build on top of this knowledge and to provide the necessary services. Very rough at the beginning, but like Fred said, more and more structured now that we had a couple of months' time. And we need to look at things like the cloud. Can the cloud help us? WVD came exactly at the right time, so that people are investigating this technology. And you are at IGEL, you're in a lucky situation that you have the technology already integrated into your product, and you started talking about it before pandemic hit. And that was perfect timing. The other thing that came up more and more is security. And that's another thing that you build into your product, and that many customers and many partners in this market are struggling with. And so this became a very hot topic. The other topic that I see that's bubbling up is containers. And at the beginning, I thought, why containers? Why do they matter? But if you start containerizing your backplane components in a way like WVD does or other technologies do now, this gives you a competitive advantage. And there the MVP program was extremely important, because Clark Nicholson, he's the principal program manager in the RDS team. Fred, you may have met with him several times now.
Not yet, sadly.
He basically is the father of WVD, and he walked us through his early thoughts on how to build WVD when the name was not invented yet. And that was almost 3 years ago. And he introduced it to us, the design that he had in mind, really whiteboarding. So he only had it in his head, and then he was standing in front of the MVPs and said, look, I have an idea. Why don't we do it that way? And he started sketching it on the whiteboard. And then we started having a lively conversation. I remember it as if it was yesterday, that we were sitting in this room and Clark was introducing us to this new idea. It took us a while to wrap our head around it, in particular the reverse connection, which was fundamentally different to anything they had done before when connecting, that you reverse connect. So for security reason, security was built into the product right from the beginning. And the backplane components that are not Windows services anymore, that are, well, there are native web applications and cloud applications. And that was a game changer. And suddenly we were all like, wow, we need to look at this technology. This is amazing. Even we as Windows experts, as remoting experts, as GPU experts and remoting protocol and all that stuff, suddenly this new topic came into the game and turned out to be extremely important.
Yeah. The reverse connect is actually a very interesting thing, because I mean, it saves us from having to go IPv6.
Yeah. Yes.
Honestly, no, I like the security aspect about the architecture behind the Windows Virtual Desktop. And what I see also is very interesting, you know, and why I want to desperately to get into the Windows Virtual Desktop side is I've been working with remoting technologies since I started my career in IT. So I've seen a few things, but it has always been exactly as you say, the sidetrack more or less for Microsoft and for Windows. It has never been a focus, but now since 2019, late 2019, when Windows Virtual Desktop got released GA. I mean, Microsoft has now embraced running Windows in the data center, not only on virtual servers, but also virtual desktop operating systems. This will be a very interesting ride for the future when Microsoft now sees this as one of the primary use cases for Windows, Windows desktop operating systems. The amount of resources and also the development will go rapid now, I think.
Yeah, and this isn't just a work from home problem, right? Your MVP is called enterprise mobility, and I think to your point, the trigger may well have been the pandemic and the fact that we all need to work from home. But hopefully one day soon we'll be in a world where we are able to return to a level of normality, whatever that might look like. But this technology isn't just, we can use it while we're all working from home, and then when we go back to the office or go back to a level of normality, we'll go back to the old ways. I think it supports the future of mobile working, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons is, and Microsoft, it took Microsoft a long time to understand that, and we had long conversations about that in Microsoft, because for a while they thought that all the Windows applications will go away and be replaced by web applications and cloud native applications or mobile applications. And I don't know if you attended Sean Bass's keynote at VMworld only a week ago, when he said that there are still 35 million Windows applications out there. So it's going to be very hard to replace them all by web applications or mobile applications. The low-hanging fruit was already picked. And so all these other Windows applications are much harder to transform into a web native application. And so Microsoft had to find something where they can host this legacy technology that I'm sure will still exist when I'm dead. So also Sean Bass, he was also an MVP, by the way. And he made a statement one day that if something really bad happens to this planet, it's only cockroaches and Windows applications that are going to survive. I kind of believe that is true, that we're going to see Windows applications for a long time. And so we were asking in the MVP group for multi-user Windows 10 or Windows 7 or Windows 8 at the time for many, many years. And finally, Microsoft did it. And again, Sean Bass was one of the ones who pushed like crazy for this. And now he's CTO at VMware, which is crazy. But he was the one who always wanted that. And this is why they also wanted to, use this technology for their Horizon product. And this is what I find amazing, how these former competitors start working together because now it's a different situation. Like I said, not only the users adapt, also the vendors and the service providers and the consulting partners and everybody adapts to this new situation. For me, it's like a revolution. And revolution is always a tricky thing because you always have people that benefit from a revolution and those people who don't. And a revolution makes everything faster. So this is what I'm seeing today. This is why I think it's so exciting to be part of that. To have been one of those people having the conversations with Clark Nicholson when he came up with this idea about WVD. And I'm really proud of that I was in the room when he presented that the first time. And now we see it out there in the wild and everybody's like, wow. And kudos to Clark. He's the mastermind behind that. It's amazing. And MVP program.
If there was one thing that you would say now, which is something perhaps that we weren't able to do 15 years ago, that people should relook at or reconsider, that we can do today with remoting technology? I mean, what is that one thing at the moment that people should revisit VDI or desktop as a service because of those improvements that we've spoken about?
The biggest improvements, I think, were made when you add a GPU.
Right.
And we did not have this technology 10 years ago. Yes, we had GPUs, but we were not able to offload some of the things that are required for remoting in the same way as we can do today. Because at the time, you were able to offload some of the rendering to the GPU, but today we can also offload the codec. So encoding and decoding. This is why it's so important that you're using GPUs or the chipset that includes a GPU in your latest and greatest in clients, because now they're fairly cheap and you can put them into the chipset system on a chip. But the same is true for the sender side. So in the backplane. So the work that NVIDIA and AMD are doing to have that kind of technology available is a game changer. And the remoting protocols adapted accordingly, because in the past, the remoting protocol was based on graphics primitives, but then they changed it to entire video encoding. Basically, if you're watching a YouTube video, it's the same technology that we're using now in remoting. So we're on the fly creating those videos. And without YouTube and without the GPU acceleration, we wouldn't be at the point where we are today. This is a big game changer for me. So people should seriously start looking at GPU accelerated remoting, because the prices go lower and lower. Today, we can even do the benchmarking, because I also do a lot of benchmarking through a company that I started with another MVP, Christine Griffin. She's also an RDS MVP. And we co-own the company Rex Analytics, where we build benchmarking tools that we're using to find out exactly those things. How much benefit do you get from a GPU, and is it good from a price perspective if you can put more users on a box and they have a good user experience? And it's really hard to find out. And I go back to the time when I was in research, when we had to go through experiments to find out what is better. So it's not about believing, it's about proof. And running these experiments in a controlled way. And this is the kind of tools that we're building. And we did a project together with IGEL where we put together exactly that kind of results, that people can see what the difference is and what the benefits are. And I think this was a breakthrough that happened over the last 3 years. And Fred, you're also into the GPU part of the thing. And so I think you share the passion about that with me. And now I think it's time that there should be a GPU in every remote session. Simply because if you buy a physical machine, there's also a GPU. I had this conversation with Microsoft. I was on campus and we had this conversation, and they said, why would we want to use a GPU? It makes the VM much more expensive. And we were having a debate in one of these meeting rooms on campus, and we didn't come to an end of this debate. And I said, okay, now let's do a simple thing. You go to the company store. If you are able to buy one single physical device in the company store that comes without a GPU, we're back to this table and we have this conversation if we can live without a GPU. If you cannot find a device without a GPU, there must be a reason.
Very true.
That was the end of the conversation.
Very true.
We'll put a link, by the way. We'll flash it up on the screen as we post edit, but we'll put a link to that work that we did with Rex Analytics at the start of this year, because I think number one, it was a great piece of work, so thank you for that. But I think
we should do that again. I also use it many times, and people do not understand what is the methodology like. And it's only a 5-minute video, and it shows people very quickly what the methodology is and what the differences are. And it really helps me also.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you also for that.
No, it's good, and we will do it again. There are definitely there is definitely a new piece of hardware coming out. I won't say any more on that right now, but we will get you that new device, and we can do that testing again. But I will share that link. Fred, what about you? I mean, Benny obviously spoke about GPUs.
Yeah.
Obviously, you agree. Is there any more to add on that, or anything else, in fact, that you think has been addressed now?
Yeah, well, I want to add a comment to the GPU side and the need of GPUs. Previously I was back in the days I was a gamer. So what is the best way to actually show performance, user experience? It's by trying a game. So playing a game through remoting is one of the harder things you can actually do. Especially if you want to have like a race driving thing where you want to steer the car with a racing wheel with pedals and gas and throttle and brakes and clutch and whatever, and the steering wheel to actually do precise movements. That could not be done without a GPU to accelerate the graphics, because the load and the amount of data needed to be transferred would be so enormous between the endpoint and the backend without the GPU actually doing the compression of the quality of the display. And then I also done remote virtual reality using Citrix by that stage at the time. I mean, it shows that you can do more or less anything in remoting systems. All of the protocols aren't at the same level of matureness, definitely. But anyways, I mean, GPUs will add on functionality or experience, no matter which technology you're using. I think also one thing that is very different now from back in the days in terms of remoting is back in the days, the amount of knowledge and the amount of information you could find in terms of remoting was limited.
Right.
Which means that there were a lot of installations of Citrix and RDS environments that were delivering a very poor user experience due to the ones that actually made it happen didn't really know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Today, the amount of information, which is why we are all here, it's due to the community more or less, that you have all the information out there. It's possible to actually pick the pieces and bits from different areas and actually set up a functional environment. Of course, when you have been working with it for a few years, you have the experience and the know-how on how to actually get this going. But I think the potential of actually getting a remoting environment functional today is so much, there is so much higher potential and possibilities today. And with the Windows Virtual Desktop side, where everything is hosted, you just fill out the form on the web and you have your virtual machines running, just connect. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was harder at the beginning, but now more and more they have done their homework, and now it's easier. It was blood, sweat, and tears a year ago. So you can also see the progress there. It's amazing.
Certainly.
And one thing that we learned in one of the MVP meetings was when we asked, hey, you hired or you have new developers and new product managers or program managers in the RDS team, where did you find them? And because sometimes they go from one group in Microsoft to another. And we found out that some of the developers and the program managers, they come from the Xbox team. And that comes back to exactly the point that Fred was making. Yes, it has a lot in common because now it's a lot about the video streaming, the encoding of the protocol and everything. So a lot has happened over the last 3 to 5 years when it comes to that. And it's a much deeper understanding on how we should use this technology now that we have the encoders and the GPUs, and also the CPUs can deal much better with it than they were ever able to do in the past. And that was really a game changer from we take the individual graphics primitives to we render the entire video. At the beginning, the remoting protocol like RDP, they fell back to what we called screen scraping, which basically is scraping off all pixels from the screen and encode them into the remoting protocol stream, which was painful because it was so slow. So you had like 1 frame per second or 1 frame every 2 seconds. Today, we go up to 60 frames per second with the new encoder technologies that we have, because there are technologies like YouTube, and they're improving this for the masses, and we can benefit from it, and we can benefit from the technology they develop for the gaming consoles, and they want to move the physical gaming consoles to cloud services too. So yes, we have a lot in common, and certainly it's a huge market. Microsoft always looks at markets that are bigger than 100 million potential users. And now we are exactly in that kind of game, that we address far more than 100 million users, which is amazing. This is what I call, now we are certainly in the center of the universe. And before that, we were on the outer rim.
I think if we sort of bring down this conversation to my level, which is that it's not just about virtual reality, high-end graphics, CAD performance, right? When I'm sat at home, I'm accessing a remote desktop. I'm using Office. I'm using PowerPoint. I need to go on and open up Teams and have a audio and now a video call.
Yeah.
These are all things that are being addressed and are now possible because of this underlying technology and the way that things have evolved, correct?
Yes, that's very correct. And I mean, even in Office, you will have a benefit of having GPUs in the backend.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. But it's definitely not a requirement. You could, I mean, for the day-to-day regular user using Office, using production systems, using whatever it might be, no GPU or soft GPUs, of course, is certainly good enough for a lot of use cases. But the important thing is that you will have the possibility to match the task worker use case and the high-end, very advanced developer, or I would say
CAD-CAM.
Yeah, CAD-CAM, or even doing Maya or 3D Studio Max rendering, real-time rendering, maybe even with real-time ray tracing, like the RTX boards from NVIDIA nowadays. So the remoting technologies now can do the full spectrum.
Yeah.
The early versions of remoting was definitely only for the task user.
Yeah.
Now it's for everybody.
Yeah.
And adding the technology of doing offloading from the server side to the client side, like in collaboration, like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, or these things, where actually the camera stream and the audio and video is rendered locally on the device to save the CPU cycles on the backend side. That is a very strong evolution that will be adopted in more areas, I think. Yeah. But having reducing the need of streaming a video from the endpoint to the server to the recipient, instead go endpoint to recipient is the way to go.
Yeah, and the thing that you mentioned, that sometimes for some of the use cases, it's good enough to only have the CPU or a soft GPU. That is true as long as you only have one user on the box. And if you look at the multi-user Windows 10 that we have in WVD now, this is also a game changer, because suddenly you're even able to saturate the CPU of such a VM with one user. So it's good if there's only one user on this Windows 10 multi-user VM, or in the only one session. But as soon as you start adding more, then you create massive overhead when it comes to the encoding and to the rendering and everything. And if you cannot offload it to the GPU on both sides, then you see problems. So yes, it looks like you buy a slightly more expensive VM if you add the GPU, and sometimes it's only 10% more. But instead of one user, you can put 4 users on the same VM. And certainly it turns out to be cheaper to add the GPU. And this is what the kind of technology that we have today. And we didn't have that in the past. So yes, it is a game changer. And it's not only for the high-end CAD/CAM use cases that were always in the focus in the past. Now it's more and more for the standard office workers, for the knowledge workers. This is a clear trend that we see. Plus, the GPUs get more and more components that are specialized for artificial intelligence, for all kind of other things that you can imagine that they put into the GPU, so that you're able to offload these things that are more and more mainstream and standard applications that you will see in the standard workplace. And that makes a difference. So you want to have all this fidelity so that you can merge and blend all these different kinds of applications, so that you have a smooth transition from what we see in Windows today to web native applications in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and so on. So I think it is a perfect way of blending all these things and give users the best user experience they can have.
Definitely.
Yeah. There was a good session on some of that as well at Digital Disrupt. So I think it was Rob Beekmans and Ian Anderson. They did a Teams offloading session.
Yes.
And it was very, very obvious. They went through the demo. Very, very obvious to see, the impact of a team session on the virtual CPU versus what was happening on the local box. And I think it sort of speaks very much so to what you're talking about there. So, yeah, definitely. Good. Well, I think we've been talking for a while. I thoroughly enjoyed that, gentlemen. So
thank you. Hey, there's one last thing. One thing I want to recommend to Fred, in what way he can use the MVP program, because that turned out to be extremely beneficial for me. So get in touch with the other MVPs.
Yes.
Because I got to know these people that are still the experts in this industry, like 15 years ago. They're still the ones that are the influencers. And some of them, they are in interesting positions now. I mean, if you have an MVP friend that suddenly is the CTO of one of these billion-dollar companies, that makes a difference. And you learn a lot from these people and how they progress. So it is, number one, good for your own career, but also for your mindset. So I learned so much from the conversations I had with the other MVPs, because they were open-minded, they were willing to share, because this is basically in our DNA. We want to share, and you bring together that kind of group. For me, it's like the Formula One group that goes from one place to the next. And this is what it felt like for us when we met at the different conferences. And these groups that were put together through the community program, such as the MVP program. And I always enjoyed hanging out with the people. And this is my recommendation. Try to get as close as possible to your fellow MVPs, because they always want to have new people in this group. Yeah. But there's one thing: try to stay longer than 1 year.
I will.
It's only that you are a serious member if you get re-awarded, because that shows your dedication. Because you need to apply back to be on the MVP program every year. So I have to report back every activity that I've done that is a community activity. And only if I qualify, then I stay on the program. And this is sort of the thing that other MVPs look at. If you come back, if you're not only there for your 1 year, then you are a full member. But I see you're on a good track with your blog. I wouldn't worry about that, because this is what Microsoft is looking at. So if I drop out of the program one day, it's just because I cannot keep up with the new ones, because there's only limited space in those programs, and that's going to happen one day. There's no doubt about it. But this is my tip for you. Get in touch with the other MVPs. Maybe one of them will grow and you will learn so much from this other person. Maybe you are the one that grows and the others will learn so much from you.
Thank you. It's a good hint, definitely.
Congratulations to the both of you. Benny, what was it, 17 years?
17, yes.
That is a very something to be applauded. So congratulations. And congratulations, Fred. Well done, you. I know you've put a lot of hard work and effort into what you do, and we appreciate what you do for IGEL and the community.
Thank you, Simon.
Hang on.
Benny's back. Here he is. Oh my God.
This is what it looks like.
Looks like.
These are the stones that you get for
That's
every
cool.
year they started it, and every year. So now you should have your first, don't you?
Yeah, it's. I guess it's on its way. So
this is what it looks like after a couple of years.
That's cool.
Well done, guys. Well done, and thank you. Thanks for spending the time this morning talking to everyone.
I really enjoyed it.
No, it's great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
No, it's our pleasure. I will put links to how people can reach out to you guys. I'll put some links into Rex Analytics. I'll put some links into the videos and some of the content that we've discussed as well. But on behalf of me and everyone that's watching, thank you, Fred. Thank you, Benny. Great to speak. It's Friday, so hopefully you can go and have a lovely weekend. Stay safe, and I will look forward to seeing you all soon.
Same to you.
Same to you, Simon. Have a good one, Benny.
Have a good one.